You didn't even notice, did you? You were too busy circle jerking over Lando Norris's post-GP selfies, fantasizing about George Russell's jawline, and praying that Charles Leclerc doesn't bin it into the nearest wall the next chance he gets. And at this point, I'm more concerned he'll do it on purpose rather than an accident, because his mental has been degrading ever since Ferrari got that nerf in 2019.
Leave me alone, please. I can have great information, and then when he's getting close, I have too much information.
Meanwhile, Oscar bloody Piastri came in through the side door, pushed the little British prima donna off a cliff, and yoinked the crown off Verstappen's lifeless body rotting over there at the Red Bull garage, and sat down on the throne like he was just fetching the morning paper. This isn't a rise, it's a takeover. A silent fucking coup. No fireworks, no Netflix story arc, no social media bullshit. Just results. Cold, mechanical, assassin-level dominance. And now, as a result, the lad's leading the bloody championship, and half of you are still wondering whether he's Australian or has just got a bit of a speech impediment.
In place of a trophy at the Ashes, what do the winning team receive as a replica when they win?
Wait, say again?
You see, Oscar isn't just fast. He's terrifying. Because he doesn't drive like someone who wants to win. He drives like someone who's already seen the future and knows that he'll take the cup home, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it, mate. This isn't about hype. This isn't about potential. This is about what happens when an absolute talent meets a broken-ass, overly dramatized and hype-driven sport and decides to, fuck it. I'm doing this my way. Quiet, relentless, and without fucking mercy. So sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up, and let me tell you the story of Formula One's most dangerous man. The lad who took over the sport while everyone else was too busy crashing the $1 million classic Ferraris and playing racing simulators until 3 a.m. This is the Oscar Piastri era, and it's already too late to stop it, mate. Now, let me take you back. Before the papaya, before the champagne, even before Lando managed to spring his first hairs above the waistline, back when Oscar Piastri was just a little Aussie goblin flying under the radar, pillaging every junior category like his name was Michael Jackson, little old Oscar had begun his career first in RC cars, actually. What a weird fucking thing to list as an actual first step in an F1 driver's Wikipedia page. Jesus. But then quickly after hitting the very ripe age of 10, he graduated to karting. You see, while most kids were out there learning which way the steering wheel turns, Oscar was making 8-year-olds cry, convincing them the only logical next step in their careers was abandoning all hopes and dreams and instead focusing on something stupid and useless, like an Ivy School education. And those that wouldn't listen would quickly learn the hard way and have all their daddy's savings poured into building their karting career vanish in an instant. So many dreams were shattered, in fact, in little old Melbourne. It is rumoured that this was the actual trigger for the 2008 financial crisis in Australia. And then, bang! Renault, Formula 3, Formula 2, boom, boom, boom. Championship, championship, championship. Back to fucking back. Like clockwork. Then, of course, there was a dramatic entry into Formula 1 with teams literally fighting tooth and nail in court trying to get the boy for his rookie season. And at the end, Zach, of course, prevailed, sending poor Otmar packing and leaving Alpine with 2 French whackers in the lineup. And Piastri, I'd say he was sitting pretty with a solid-ish team on the grid for 2023. Little did he know that that was the best choice he could have ever made in Formula 1. Now, having landed on the grid, the Piastri lad properly locked out and started off his career at none other than McLaren, one of the few mid-tier up-and-comers and having to step into the shoes of some real legends of the sport. Carlos Sainz, who at the time had taken the next step to the holy grail of Formula 1, Ferrari, he's probably kicking himself now, mate. In fact, everyone who comes in contact with that team in the past 15 years has seemingly been kicking themselves ever since. Honestly, it just never fucking ends well for them, does it?
Very impressive.
And then the other lad he's replaced was none other than Ricciardo, the fucking honey badger, the only other driver that managed to survive alongside Verstappen at the RB. Well, survive is a bit of a strong word.
But he's going to try and dive down. And suddenly have crashed. They've gone into each other.
So, yeah, big shoes to fill. But honestly, the lad managed himself quite well. He got in and really was not trailing that far behind the team's prodigy. But just far enough not to upset the poor drama queen and send him into a premature spiral. not yet at least. And to be honest, that really wasn't the time for it actually. Because back in the day, if you can believe, McLaren was sucking ass. They had gone through a bit of a rough patch and were down in the dirt, slowly rising from the ashes that was the 2022 season. Finishing behind Alpine of all fucking teams. Jesus, that must have been one rough year, mate. But as Oscar joined the outfit in 23, their luck started to slowly improve and the car was really developing, together with Oscar. Honestly, in terms of timing, it couldn't have been any better for him. He got in, he need time to acclimate to the raw speed and handling of these cars. You know, for some more than others, of course. Piastri wasn't really struggling with the car from the get-go. Well, some still haven't gotten the grip of their car 8 years in.
Oh, that is ridiculous. That is a huge hit into the back of Daniel Ricciardo for Stroll, who then had to pit.
Idiot just slammed on the brake, check wing damage.
Yeah, I got hit.
VSC, no? Whoa! Yeah. Oh my god! Oh! Was that on the safety car? No way.
I think it was like everyone kind of braked. The car in front of me just stopped right in front of me. I had nowhere to go.
He's saying my mistake? Okay, I had started to calm down, but now that pisses me off.
And then as the car progressed, so did he. And so began the McLaren era. Now, this is where it gets real spicy, mate. Having evolved and enjoyed a pretty successful rookie entry, I mean, the lad got his first dub before Lando. Well, almost. His second year in F1 couldn't go any better. Sitting now in a championship challenger 2 years into the sport, consistently going for wins alongside your teammate and taking you up to the reigning 4-time champ is fucking nuts. 2 years in, mate. Honestly, I don't think we appreciate it enough, but he probably had one of the best starts to a career in the history of the sport. I mean, I would say rivaling, or maybe even better than Verstappen's. And those first few seasons of his were fucking ludicrous. Hey, fucking hell, what a word, Dion. What vocabulary. And there's no chance I can spell that as well. And so first proper wins, a few downs of course, and the lad finishes in a respectable 4th. Still a bit behind his teammate, again, I would say quite fair considering the boy just had his F1 debut 1 year ago. And at the same time, by the way, he was the clear number 2 driver at the time. It was clear as day Lando was the absolute favourite at McLaren. Whoa, what a fucking turnaround, eh? Here we fucking go. Stepping into the season, like I said, Piastri was the number 2, and finally, what could be considered a championship favourite car. What all of us expected was a Lando versus Max championship, where Lando would likely eke out the season on points unless something catastrophic was to happen. Honestly, knowing Lando's self-destructive tendencies, it wasn't such a stretch.
How you feeling?
I was pretty bad. I didn't sleep 26 hours straight. So my head was like...
Actually made me tear up. Fuck. And when it came to Piastri, we expected, yet another story of a second driver kind of playing the team game, helping the constructors, but not really taking the challenge to the star driver. Oh, how wrong we were. Let's just say the last thing this lad was about to do was keep acting as Lando's little lapdog. And cheers to McLaren, because they realized that they have 2 legendary drivers in their ranks. 2 massive talents, and while likely the safe thing was to give it all to one of them, and have the other one practically neutered like a 2019 Bottas, but they didn't. Fuck no. In fact, even having experienced a few tough times with the lads having a bit of a toss-up together, they didn't fucking budge. Okay, they did employ some basic common sense when it came to altercations and reminded their drivers of the risks they're taking, but that's it. No team rules. No, hey Oscars, James. Nothing like that. Take note, you German prick. Okay, but to be honest, playing devil's advocate here, for McLaren, it might even be the safer strategy not to side with a star driver for this one. Maybe putting all your eggs in one basket is not the smartest choice in F1 after all. Especially when all that's supporting that basket is the loose mental health of your 20-year-old pop star, which is inherently only sustained on gambling, flashy cars, and higher churn in personal life than the second Red Bull seat. But for Oscar, all that coming together to now a pretty nice picture going to the second phase of the championship. In the lead in the standings, while by a small margin, but I would say with confidence. Now, having established that Oscar is shaping up to be one of the clear favourites for the championship, potentially even a multitude of them throughout his likely lengthy career, this only raises one question now to me. What makes him this absolute legend? And more practically, how do we now go about replicating this blueprint to create more successful little Piastris out of our kin? Because you best believe this is the only path to financial stability that I see in this economy. This and degenerative gambling. You see, if your kid's first word wasn't Apex, congrats, you've already f***ed it. You really don't get into F1 if you start when you're 12. That's peasant tier parenting. If your spawn isn't clocking laps in a car by the time he's out of nappies, you might as well buy him a football or star him in a kid's YouTube channel against his will. I hear those raking a ton of money as well. Now, I would even go as far as saying that Oscar was burning rubber a bit too late, if I'm honest. Like, 10 is pushing it. I mean, for him, at least, he had a knack for the whole motorsport thing early, as he was playing around with RC cars until he was 10. But honestly, I didn't even know that was a real sport. Is there like an actual league for this stuff, where kids compete with their little toy cars? And if so, where do I sign up? Either way, you don't discover F1 talent late, man. This isn't a Pixar film. This isn't Hollywood. You're either raised in the cockpit like a lab rat before preschool, or you're Max Chilton. Who's that, you might be asking yourself? Exactly. You know, this one's simple. If your driving mentor has not won a 24-hour Le Mans, become a world's or at least a European championship, it's time to reconsider your career aspirations, and you best learn how to settle with an absolute maximum of a 2-year stint at a shitty F4 team. Because here's the deal. All the drivers nowadays that have gone on to dominate F1 have had proper elite level coaching from day one. Maxi is the obvious example here. I mean, the man's lucked out and was born with an F1 mentor by his bedside. Well, probably not. Considering how the Verstappen marriage went, Jos was probably nowhere to be seen when Junior came into the world. I guess you can always play that off as gathering intel for your son about what it's like to be an F1 driver. I mean, you gotta teach him all of the tricks of the trade. And actually, one side note, although recommended for a higher probability of success, you don't necessarily have to mentally and physically abuse the child as a result of the mentorship. It seems they do just fine if you are experienced enough. Just throwing that out there. Now, this one's big, because talent without good management is like a Ferrari on a race weekend. Seemingly talented and fast, but quickly cast aside by the absolute cockery from the pit wall.
Secondary at C, position 6.
The switches, please. No switches. Like, you have no idea how it's like. I need to warm up the tires. No switches. I cannot look at my steering wheel in these conditions. Even if I look at the track, I'm struggling because I don't see. If you ask me to look at my steering wheel and make changes, that's not possible. Please take those comments on board and we keep them for the rest of the race. Please stop those switches.
Clear.
Now, Oscar Piastri would not be where he is today if it wasn't for Mark Webber, putting on his big Aussie bloke trousers and going to war with Alpine's PR department. But Webber saw the fire. You know, he saw the absolute destitute of Alpine, and he said, nah, I'd rather have that kid get in bed with an American working for the Brits than a fat Frenchman. Please don't quote that. So here's the lesson. Get yourself a bastard for a manager. A manager who knows the sport, knows the system, and knows how to commit career theft in broad daylight. You know, if a good rule of thumb is, if your rep doesn't know how to swindle a Russian oligarch into funding the team and then pulling his son out due to bad PR, the guy knows nothing about the sport. Also, Piastri's no little kid crying and panicking at the first sign of trouble. Honestly, the haul of points the boys collected simply from Lando fucking up along the way is staggering. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but this is what makes or breaks a championship. And apart from an absolutely out-of-pocket penalty in Silverstone, the clearest sign of FIA meddling since 2020, he has not lost out on many points based on just mistakes of his own. Despite his still quite low tenure on the grid, you know. God knows even Max had plenty of those before he became champ. That guy was the definition of a temper tantrum back in the day. You know, just ask Vettel.
He has to let me go. He has to let me go. Okay, copy. Stay calm. For sake. That's what he is. I mean, am I the only one? Or are you not seeing what I'm seeing?
And so while stardom and talent is absolutely key in F1, I mean, skill beats everything, right? Oscar is a clear example of how consistently eat skill for breakfast. I mean, what does a staggering performance on a Saturday and a pole position give you? if you bog down on lights out on 30% of your stats.
Who's got the bravery? Threw a rouge on lap 1. Lando had a bit of a slide.
Look at how close Oscar Piastri is to his teammate. He's going to have an immediate opportunity. The two contenders for the title, side by side. Oscar Piastri to the race lead by turn 5.
Now it's game over.
You know, all that is of course well and good. But at the end of the day, there is one thing that discards everything I've said in the past. God knows how many minutes I've been rambling on now. And that thing is just dumb fucking luck. Honestly, selection of the right team is just complete luck. You can never predict if there's a spot on the grid, let alone if it's an attractive team, let alone predict which one will be the attractive team in 3 to 5 years. It seems there is, don't get me wrong, some element of good analysis from the driver-team interview process that can be learned, because it seems Carlos guessed the team correctly with the way Williams has been absolutely whooping ass on the grid. But there's also the example of Ricardo, which would say the opposite. But maybe that one was a bit more about a cold-hearted lust for cash than anything, and wanting to not be pushed out of the nest by the young Verstappen. Honestly, it might have been a good thing. Or maybe the biggest blunder of his career. I guess we'll never know. Oh, who are we kidding? It's the fucking ladder, innit? Of course, if you start young, are consistent, have the right people surrounding you, you will be better set up to deal with the opportunities that are presented your way. But the way those opportunities appear is just purely random, honestly. And while I want to sit here and say that the reason why Piastri is the best on the grid, despite it only being his 3rd year behind the wheel, is because he's a talented young lad who's been guided down the right path by those close to him. But deep down, I know none of this was even remotely possible without immense luck, with timing of his entry into Formula 1, with his absolutely fortunate selection of debut team, and the unforeseen crash of the once absolutely dominating Red Bull pairing. Well, singular, just Verstappen. The other never stood a chance. Now, of course, I don't want to discourage anyone here. There's a massive amount of work that's been done by the kid and his team to get him to the position, and aspiring young drivers should be more like him in every aspect of his character. Well, maybe apart from his ice-cold nature. I'm sorry, I still tune into Sunday to see a good bit of entertainment, you know. Drivers at each other's throats, crying on the radio, the halo being put to good use. The last thing I want is in 10 years an army of emotionless dickheads on the grid, unable to tell from the post-race interviews which one's a DNF'd on lap 3 and which one had secured his first championship title. So, for the love of God, please tell your kids to live their emotions out when they're practicing on the track. Trust me, it will be so much easier to sell their signature caps on eBay in the future. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank me later.